Immigrants have supported the American economy and have grown over a period of time, as for as long as anybody can remember. But there is also at the same time certain small section of people who are very opposed to any group of immigrants who come into America. And so this is nothing new. It's not a new phenomena as such that people view this um, as a racially biased, which it is. But over a period of time, all these different groups were also subjected to racial attacks when they were coming in. What is different right now is social media, which anybody with a keyboard and access to internet can say any outrageous things, and anybody who makes most outrageous statements get the headlines. We saw that a lot of Iranian bots were attacking Indian immigrants who were pretending to be Americans, who had a picture of an American person and with the American name, even had a location, but they were actually Iranian bots who were attacking Indian immigrants at the time. So Elon Musk came to US as somebody who was a student and then changed to H1B visa. Now, this is the first time in the history wherein somebody who came on H1B visa to America and is now the richest person in the world, we say that no, any system that asks for preferential treatment doesn't work. It doesn't work for the immigrants, it doesn't work for America, it doesn't work for Americans.
All of a sudden, Indians on H1B visas in the US are the most discussed people in the country. A bunch of extreme MAGA loudmouths have been screaming their lungs out on X and elsewhere that H1B should be done away with. Why? Because apparently Indians are exploiting it to steal American jobs. Now, is that true? Well, if you think all jobs in all American companies should go to the Americans, yes. But the likes of Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk, among others, have pointed out that the reason these jobs go to Indians and others is because either the Americans are not qualified or don't have the kind of acumen top tech jobs demand. But the MAGA extremists aren't interested in merit of any kind, of the immigrants who these jobs are going to, or the merit of that argument. So when Ramaswamy and Musk talked about removing the nationwide cap on H1B, it was immediately interpreted as leaving the gates of corporate America wide open for more Indians. Something the MAGA extremists are dead against. Even Trump weighed in and set the record straight on the subject. But what started as a criticism of the existing visa regime has devolved into outright racist attacks. To talk about what will be the likely outcome of this issue, I am joined by Mr. Aman Kapoor, who moved to the US on H1B visa in the late 90s. Now he is an American citizen and an important voice behind a key bill which is expected to address the visa issue going forward. He is also the president of Immigration Voice. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Kapoor.
Thank you, Abhishek. Thanks for having me.
Mr. Kapoor, why do you think H1Bs and Indians have become such a political hot potato in the US at this point?
First of all, you see the latest update, as everybody would know, that in the recent elections, President Trump was elected, and he has decided to nominate many Indian Americans in his administration, which sort of like triggered this recent outburst of opposition from certain quarters of folks who believe that America first means that only certain group of people will be made part of the administration, and anybody who doesn't look like them will not be included, which is not how it should be, because anybody who is here and who is an American who qualifies and is considered as qualified by the president, incoming president, should be made part of the administration. And so because of that difference in how different people view the whole situation, there was an outburst of anger from a very small quarter of people who are very loud, but they make it sound like that is the opinion of the entire country, which is not so. And so that is one reason. The other reason is, of course, President Trump promised that when he would take over, and if he's elected and if he takes over, he would be working on on the border to make sure that there is some fix to the inflow of undocumented immigrants into the country. And secondly, also that he would address the question of legal immigration, especially skilled immigration. And those are two primary reasons why you'd see such activity on social media and across the board, wherein a lot of people are talking about legal immigration right now as the new president takes over.
But Mr. Kapoor, what's worrying is the way in which this debate is evolving. Or I should say, devolving into nothing but outright racist attacks.
You see, immigration is a third rail of American economy. Immigration Immigrants have supported the American economy and have grown over a period of time, as for as long as anybody can remember. Now, but there is also at the same time certain small section of people who are very opposed to any group of immigrants who come into America. Whether it
Right.
was the Chinese immigrants who were brought in to do the railroad work in the late 18th century, or in the 19th century, there were Italian immigrants, and then subsequently Irish immigrants who came in, and the Jewish uh, immigrants who came in. There was significant opposition all throughout American history first to this different set of immigrants. And so this is nothing new. It's not a new phenomena as such that people view this um, as a racially biased, which it is. But over a period of time, all these different groups were also subjected to racial attacks when they were coming in. And but the recent attacks on the what is different right now is social media, which anybody with a keyboard and access to internet can say any outrageous things, and anybody who makes most outrageous statements get the headlines. And that is why it gives an appearance that the whole country in America as such is somehow leaning towards attacking Indian immigrants, which is actually not the case. There is a very small section of people, as I said earlier, who are extremely vocal, and they make it sound like that their opinion is the opinion of the everybody in America or everybody in the Republican Party, and neither of those two are true.
If I may ask, who would you identify the small section of people as?
Yeah. So you see, I believe in horseshoe theory. What that means is if you go too far to the left or if you go too far to the right, the people who are on the extreme ends of both the ideologies are oftentimes much more closer to each other compared to people who are centrist, who want common sense solution. This group of people who are extreme right MAGA, or who make a claim that somehow immigrants coming in into America are making America impure, or are somehow responsible for all the problems in America, probably haven't interacted with many immigrants or anyone at all as such, uh, because that is what their experience is, and that experience outpours into the on the internet. But this group of people are also encouraged by a lot of fake handles on the social media. When we were pushing for the bill in 2020, and it already passed the House and it already was being worked on in the Senate, we saw that a lot of
Absolutely.
Iranian bots were attacking Indian immigrants who were pretending to be Americans, who had a picture of an American person and with the American name, even had a location, but they were actually Iranian bots who were attacking Indian immigrants at the time, because to spread the negativity towards Indian immigrants at the time. So it is also possible that the what you see on social media is not entirely the work of American small group of American people, but also this is sort of like a psychops that is conducted by different forces that are in play, who don't want the system to change. Number one, and who has invested who have vested interest in making sure that there is trifle in the American society. And so, anytime any issue, especially related to immigration, is brought up, there always you would see these type of uh, ideas being pushed around, which are not viewed very friendly towards immigrants.
The Iranians. What do you think is the incentive for the Iranians to attack Indians in this manner?
Yeah, you see, this is not as much related to geopolitics as it is related to group of immigrants from specific countries. For example, in case of Iran, there are immigrants from Iran, Argentina, Malaysia. You pick a country, and you have immigrants from all these different countries. Now they get prioritized. They get the green cards in 1 to 2 years. I mean, it is as much as postal weight. And the bill that we were pushing for, and we are still pushing for that bill, so that it gets included in the upcoming package to remove per country limit. One group of people from almost every country in the world is getting preferential treatment under the current system. They get the green cards in very short span of time. Another group of people, a significant number of people who are waiting for rest of their life to get the green card. So if per country limit is removed, the wait time of certain people who are currently prioritized or get preferential treatment for no qualification other than their country of birth will go away. And because of that reason, a certain group of people from Iran and other few other countries, they did not like that, and they were making it sound like it is not that they are attacking the bill, but they were creating fake handles and making it sound like the entire American population is against the bill. But that is a backdrop of how we had personally viewed what we see on the social media is not entirely what it is. Of course, there are other forces in play who actually want stifle in American society all the time, who are who are spreading different messages from across the borders of what is from across the border from America, and they are posting different messages to create stifle and generate traffic. That's number two. Number three, and then there are a small group of people. You might have seen Laura Loomer messages and a few others uh, who were very outspoken, and not just outspoken. They were, um, in a way, as you pointed out, not really not politically correct and not very friendly towards Indian immigrants or any immigrants as such. If
If you
certain
ask me, I will call it entirely racist.
that is one way of looking at it, absolutely. And you see, we cannot be who our opponents are. I always view anything, even regardless of how our opponents or anybody who opposes us, they push or they position themselves. When we are trying to do a bill, we have to understand that our opponents are not evil or they're not bad or they're not wrong. They just have a difference of opinion. And that is how we have made progress with our bill all across the board. We just
Right.
believe that they have wrong set of beliefs, and we just have to educate more people to make sure that in a democracy, more people are educated about the contributions of immigrants. And instead of name calling, because name calling doesn't help in both ways. And of course, as you can see, more and more people are moving away from folks who have been making racist comments about Indian Americans and other immigrants, because in a society which has to rely on political dialogue in public space, you cannot go after one another in a nasty manner as some of these folks have done. There needs to be political discourse, needs to be respectful. And I believe that significant number of these folks, when they will look at the facts, they will turn around and they will support the upcoming bill that President Trump would want to do.
Mr. Kapoor, I'm sorry I'm interrupting you, but what are these facts which, if discussed, you think can potentially change the mind of those on the other side?
I think there are one within that group of people who are making outrageous, nasty comments. Some group of a large section of population can be convinced to uh, to to change their mind when they would interact with somebody who has been here on different visas and is now a citizen. And there are a lot of examples. For example, Elon Musk came to US as somebody who was a student and then changed to H1B visa. Now, this is the first time in the history wherein somebody who came on H1B visa to America and is now the richest person in the world, and with holding uh, key positions with the most innovative companies in the world. It hasn't happened in the past, but we knew that eventually something like this would happen, and that will be a good example. But of course, you see, there are certain group of people who can never be convinced, who don't want to get convinced. It doesn't matter what the facts are because they have a certain worldview. But then there are other people who are, over a period of time, we have experienced in Congress. We have done thousands of meetings in the Capitol Hill, educating members of Congress and their staff. And we started with a point where members of Congress, they opposed our bill in the beginning. Even some senators who actually opposed our bill in the beginning, but ended up supporting it, rather co-sponsoring our bill when they understood what the bill does. So I guess the onus of educating or spreading awareness depends on the people who actually care for the issue, rather than just going back and forth name calling, which doesn't help in a political discourse to actually get things done. People need to be more actively involved. and first educate themselves in speaking up and become part of the political process by speaking
Right.
up and speaking to the members of Congress in their districts, in their states, speaking to the senators, telling their story. Because in the end, the decision would be made by folks who sit in Congress. They will pass
Right.
some bill, and this sideshow on social media is not of as much value, even though that seems to be grabbing a lot of attention, at least for now. But what happens in Congress is not directly proportional to what happens on social media. Members of Congress or the staff are not going to everybody's Twitter handle or Facebook pages to see what people are saying or not saying. They actually get convinced by facts, and but the facts are that our folks who actually care for this issue need to speak up. And when they speak up, there's no need to name call the other side as racist. We just need to stick with the facts, focus on the contributions that we have been making, and do it in a humble way with humility and ask for equality rather than preferential treatment. We have seen folks who actually start asking for preferential treatment, saying that this group of people should be prioritized or over the other. We say that no, any system that asks for preferential treatment doesn't work. It doesn't work for the immigrants. It doesn't work for America. It doesn't work for Americans. We always focus on creating more awareness with the members of Congress. At the same time, focus on a system that is based on equality and fairness. And
Right.
I think if we stick to those principles, we have seen that over a course of last 18 years, when we have worked on the bill, we have converted a lot of people who used to oppose our bill. Now they support our bill.
That's wonderful to hear that there is bipartisan support for it. But as you were saying, that, the sideshow on social media, as you chose to call it, is not going to determine the future and the fate of the bill. You said it's the members of the House and the Senate who will. So if you would like to, I'm not sure if you want to at this stage, but if you would like to, could you please name these senators, some of the key supporters of the bill?
Sure. In the past, the bill have been supported by very conservative senators, Senator Mike Lee from Utah, and he actually championed the bill. He took it all the way through and got the bill passed over objection of a lot of different senators. He negotiated changes into the bill, and he got it passed in the Senate with all 100 senators voting for the bill. Never in the history of America, an immigration bill which has significant impact has been passed in the Senate with all 100 votes, which speaks for itself about the support and the leadership of Senator Mike Lee and Senator Kramer, who have taken over the bill since last Congress and have sponsored the bill, and we expect that he would sponsor the bill again very soon in the new Congress when it starts after 3rd of January, which is tomorrow. And we expect that we have, and then Senator Cotton is there, who's also very conservative from the state of Arkansas. He believes in fairness and equality and treating people based on skill and the economic value that somebody brings into the country rather than country of birth. And there are scores of others. Even on the House side, we used to have Congressman Chaffetz, who is no longer in Congress. He retired, but he was championing our bill. He was also a very conservative member of the Congress. And right now we have Congressman McCormick from Georgia. He's also very conservative, and he's a champion of the bill right now. And we expect him to sponsor the bill again in this Congress. So if you see, and these are the conservative members, and I can keep on going, and there won't be enough sufficient time for on this segment. But the point is that we have across the board bipartisan, bicameral support, meaning support from Democrats and Republicans in both the House and the Senate, which is why the bill passed with the 365 votes, only 65 opposing in the House. And then the same bill went to the Senate. It passed with all 100 votes in the Senate. And that work is done behind the scene, wherein rather than making noise on social media, rather than arguing with people who would never get convinced, that's just losing
And where
proposition.
did the and Mr. Kapoor, where did the bill actually get stuck?
So the bill got stuck because it went to the Senate, it went to the House, it passed, it then went to the Senate. Senate made certain changes into the bill because there were some senators who were opposed or they had certain objections and they wanted other provisions to be included. And because the bill changed and certain provisions were added to the bill, so it had to go back to the House to again pass the same language in the House. Now, when the same language went to the House, there was sufficient time, but House Democrats did not bring up the bill. And at that time, we were told that they did not want to give President Trump a victory because that happened after December, after the November 2020 election, where apparently President Trump had already lost the election, and it was expected that President Biden will take over. And during that
Right.
window of time, the bill actually passed the Senate with all 100 senators voting for it. And
Right.
there are certain elements in the Democratic Party who said to us personally, to me directly, that they did not want President Trump to get a win, which is why they did not allow the bill to come up for vote in the House again. And if it would have come up for vote, the bill would have passed with 400 votes out of 435. Or the point is, it would have passed with massive support, and it would have been
Right.
already. But the politics was put ahead of good policy, and that is never a good thing.
Hopefully, yes, once the bill is presented again, it will clear this time. Would you like to spend a minute or two talking to us about some of the key elements, key components of the bill? What are the kind of things that you proposed, and what are the kind of changes this will bring to the existing visa regime?
Well, thank you. That's a very important part of the entire bill and what can be done, because explaining what is in the bill is the most important thing. People usually hang on to half a phrase when explaining what the bill does, or any, not just in this context or for this bill, but in general for any bill or for any context. And that muddies the water, and that makes it very difficult to pass anything in Congress, not just in US Congress, but anywhere where there's a political process. So defining clearly what is in the bill, what it does, helps significantly to convince more people that it is actually a good policy and a good bill. So allow me to share what is in this bill. What the bill does is it makes sure that, as I explained earlier, H1B system is a temporary system, and green card is a permanent system where a permanent resident gets a green card, and then somebody can stay here permanently and then work here permanently without having any other sponsorship requirement for any other sponsorship. Now, H1B system right now, because of massive backlogs due to per country limits in the green card category, is now where Indian immigrants and a large number of Chinese immigrants are having to stay in the backlog and thus on H1B visa perpetually. Now, as H1B is a temporary visa, and if you force somebody to stay perpetually and permanently on a temporary system, then new problems will crop up. And those new problems would be something that nobody had envisioned ahead of time, because it was never supposed to be in a way where people would stay on a temporary H1B visa permanently. What that means is, well, people are stuck with the H1B on the H1B visa permanently, then they are stuck with the same employer. Their spouses, in a lot of cases, cannot work. Their children get aged out when they go to the age of 21. And meaning in US, if a child gets to the age of 21, they are no longer part of the nucleus family. Instead, they are they're separate from the nucleus family. And for the purpose of how the immigration system treats that person who changes to the age of 21 while their application is pending, will now be untethered from the parent's application and will have to start afresh. And so that child would age out, meaning that child would either have to change to a student status or will have to leave the country. Meaning, imagine a child who came from India who was 2 years old, and then their parent came with the parents, and the parent got H1B visa, have been staying in the US on H1B visa and waiting for the green card. Because the green card queue for Indian Americans is such large that the child has now changed into is now 21 years old, and because of the 21 years of age, the child ages out. And once the child ages out, this is the only country that the child knows. This is where the child has lived their entire life, and now the child is now the child gets kicked out, and that's not a good system. That's not a fair system.
Okay.
So these are the many problems that the bill actually addresses. In addition to that, it also curbs a lot of abuses in the system, because there are abuses where some employers, they bring in a person on a visitor visa for 6 months, and somebody on visitor visa should not be allowed to work in the US. The purpose of visit is somebody comes in, do business meetings, and go back, which is different from somebody who comes in and then comes to the office every day from 8 to 5 and then works all day for 6 months and does a job and still gets paid in India or somewhere else. And that's an unfair system. That's an abuse of the system. So the bill actually forbids doing that. Number one. Number two, it creates a website for all the jobs that for anybody who's on H1B visa, their job description and the job title and the location is posted on a separate website, will be posted on a separate website, so that if any American who thinks that they are qualified, they can apply for the job. And the point is that Americans would get first shot at the job rather than prioritizing immigrants, which is any country would do that. I mean, imagine in India, if somebody would come in from Sri Lanka and Bangladesh and is prioritized over somebody who's from India, then obviously Indians will find it very unfair. And so people who are opposed to that kind of system in America, they're not racist against Indians. They are just expressing that that is wrong because in their country, they should be prioritized, meaning Americans should be prioritized from their point of view. And, there's nothing wrong with that expectation. And that is also one of the ingredients of the bill. Plus, it also curbs a lot of exploitation of immigrants. There's provisions for, as I mentioned earlier, kids not aging out. And then in a 10-year transition period, the per country limit is removed entirely on the employment-based green card system, such that immediately people who are in the backlog from other countries will not immediately get blocked out. It's that there will be a slow transition period, such that immigrants, when they come in the future, they will know that when they come to America, they would know exactly what their position is in the line. Many people who are from different countries, they attacked the bill saying that, well, I came here last year. If I had known that I would be waiting for 170 years, and somebody who came in from, say, Argentina, and then I would have not come. In that case, what the bill does, it has a gradual transition period of for 10 years, wherein per country limits are first increased and then subsequently totally eliminated.
In other words,
Surprisingly, that sounds like a win-win situation for both sides. You're also considering the genuine grievances of Americans who are complaining, while ensuring Indians who get to the US on H1Bs are treated fairly.
Yes, that is correct. You see, in a room full of people, if some people are less equal to others, that means nobody is equal to anybody else. And in the current US economy, there are 110 million people who actually work. And if 2 million people are skilled immigrants who are stuck with certain employers, then employers have bad or wrong incentive to hire more people from that country. Which is why you see 75% of all the H1B visas are hired from India. It's not that Indians are smarter or better than other people across the planet, although that is what a lot of people would like to believe. The truth is, when you compare millions of people in one country to millions of people in another country, nobody can say that who's smarter or better. And you can always find 50,000 skilled immigrants who are really smart. And if you go to any large country in the world or any large city in the world, go to Johannesburg, you can find 50,000 engineering graduates and doctors who would want to migrate to America. You can go to, you go to Santiago, Chile, or you go to any large city in the world. You can find 50,000 people every year from just that city who are qualified and who would want to come to America. But in this context, there is a bad incentive for certain employers to specifically go to India and then hire Indians to come to America on H1B visa and then exploit them. We believe that that is a wrong reason why an employer should go to India or any other country to hire people.
Mr. Kapoor, could you explicitly tell us which elements in the existing H1B regime are incentivizing the hiring of Indians and also making Indians vulnerable to exploitation by employers?
You see, employers know that if they hire somebody from India, those employees will be stuck with the employer for the rest of their life. Those employees will not be, even if the employees will, what that means is because the green card backlog is so long, these employees will never get the green card. So while somebody is waiting for the green card, they're stuck on H1B visa, which is employer sponsored. And that means that employee is stuck with that employer who sponsored that employee to come to America or to work in America. And what that means is, in any relationship, whether it's two neighbors or two friends, or in this case, employer-employee relationship, if one party doesn't have any leverage at all, because employee is totally dependent and stuck for their entire stay in America on their employer, then the employee doesn't have any leverage. When the employee doesn't have any leverage, say end of the year, there's a performance review and the employee says, well, I think I'm deserving of a pay raise. The employer will say, no, I'm not going to give you pay raise. So what is an immigrant who's stuck on H1B visa and is waiting for green card for last 10 years going to do? He's going to say, all right, I'll just wait. Because there are only two options: either get kicked out and give up everything that somebody has built up for last decade, or just stay and wait for a system to get fixed. And in often cases, people just wait. So what that means is employers have wrong incentive to hire more people from India, because there's a massive backlog for people from India. And so that is why such large number of employers go to India to hire more people on H1B visa. Not because they are smarter or better, but because even though they are, and they are qualified as such, but employers can find those qualified people in other countries also. But there is an incentive for those employers to specifically go to India and hire more people from India, so that the backlog mushrooms and grows into much bigger size. And as such, people get exploited. And in this employee-employer relationship, certain employers benefit massively. Imagine, if you look at all the patents that are filed in the last 10 years, 70% of those patents are filed by immigrants. And you can see that most of those patents were filed by people who are on visa. And the patents, when they were filed by people who are on visa, those are people who are stuck on H1B visa, most of them. And if they had green cards, they could leave their employer and file the patents so that they are the sole owner of those patents and intellectual property. But because somebody's stuck with the employer, their employment contract demands that any patent that they would file when they are stuck with their employer belongs to the employer. So this has many different dimensions. This is not just about patents or any specific smaller spectrum of issue which it does create, but I'm just giving that as an example, that when people are not treated fairly,
no, thank you so much for that example.
There's many different ramifications.
Thank you so much for explaining the facts of the situation on ground so well. My last question to you: what would your advice be for somebody looking to move to the US on a H1B visa at this point in time?
Well, unless this is an extremely important time, and anybody who's wanting to make that choice, and I've spoken to a lot of people who oftentimes call and ask for guidance on what they should do, and when they are in the same place in their life, we always tell them that look at what is happening, and if the system would change, then you should absolutely consider. But then you would be competing with a lot of different people, because the employers will no longer have wrong incentive to hire from India, which is how it should be. Anybody who actually is making that consideration should be open to the fact that they would be competing with everybody in the world. Number one. Number two, there's life in US is extremely rewarding. You get rewarded for your hard work, and I think everybody who actually cares for this issue should pay attention to what is happening right now, to this debate, and participate in this debate in howsoever they can, because it is not just about immigrants who are coming to America, but it is also about Americans, and it is also about America. And so as such, I don't believe that there is any silver bullet or any single advice that can be given to folks that they should come or they shouldn't come. It should be that they should pay attention, and they should pay attention to what is about to unfold, because we live in time wherein we would witness something that would last a lifetime. Last time when such a system was created, it was almost 30, 40 years back. So, most people who are alive, they'll probably go through the system if they decide to come to America. And then that's why if somebody's want to go through that system, then they should pay attention. And that's all that I can actually say. But one aspect that I must mention is oftentimes it is said that H1B is given to Indians or green card is given to Indians. You see, it is not given to a country.
Right.
Green card is given to individual who is already in America in 95% to 99% cases and is already contributing to an American economy. And oftentimes, if that person waiting in the backlog for 20 years, if not be for India, would have voted in last 3 elections, would have already been citizen 12 years back, and is more American than anybody who's coming into America from any other country in the world. And so those green cards, if they're given to somebody from Pakistan and is privatized, or is from Nigeria or from Germany or Brazil, anybody who's privatized from these countries over anybody else, that doesn't work very good for America. If you look at the innovation across the board, innovation, when you are creating a new product or new technology, it doesn't say that you have to be born in certain country and only then you'll be allowed to innovate. And that's just the way, the natural course of how things unfold. And
Right.
President
No,
of
thank you so much.
President,
Mr.
the
Kapoor,
president of
very,
China
very
and Prime Minister of India will never call to America and say, well, give green cards to Indians. They would rather want qualified Indians and qualified Chinese to stay in their country. So green card is not given to a country as such. It is given to individual who can then contribute to the economy and is already contributing to the American economy. And I think that perspective and that viewpoint is extremely important. And somebody who doesn't understand that viewpoint is often going to attack the whole bill or any change that anybody would want to do. In fact, the status quo works worse for American workers.
Mr. Kapoor, thank you so much for taking the time to explain the issue to us in such great detail. I'm sure, as far as the viewers are concerned, all their questions must have been answered as far as what's happening in the US, why it's happening, and why Indians all of a sudden are at the forefront of this debate over immigration and, of course, visas as well. But once again, Mr. Kapoor, thank you so much for taking the time and for talking to us.
Thank you for having me, Abhishek.